With your head, yeah. Thanks.
Okay, is that a good one?
That's great.
Okay.
We'll try those.
Yeah, sorry about the float one.
No.
The guy from the Sun actually stole it at the beginning.
I've used it before myself, so.
Yeah?
I thought it's a nice shot, though.
Hi,
Thanks.
my name's Jennifer. Hi, how are you? Yes.
I think we need to really give this message out to all three levels of government, saying that this is an important cause and we need your attention and we need you to address this. There can't be anything more important than life.
In our first segment, we bring you the story of George Marcello's journey across Canada. For the last 250 days, George has been on the road telling Canadians about the shortage of organ donations and the vital need for a national donor registry.
On this next segment, we're talking about organ donations with my guest, George Marcello. Thanks for being with me,
Thank you for having
George. But before we begin, I want to show you the story I filed on the proposal you have to improve donation rates. Let's have a look at that. It's easy to understand why George Marcello is passionate about the cause of organ donations. 10 years ago, he was within a couple of days of dying before a liver became available for a transplant that saved his life.
Do we want to solve this issue or don't we? Because it's solvable.
What needs to be solved is the chronic shortage of available organs.
To see George Marcello, you may think that he's just another pedestrian, but he's much more than that. George Marcello is a survivor. Because of one organ donor, 6 people were able to go on living, and that is why George is walking. For nearly a year, he has been making his way across Canada to raise awareness about organ donation and to demonstrate that such a donation can make a huge difference in someone's life.
There's presently 4,000 people on the waiting list right now.
Canada. George Marcello is a liver transplant recipient and is now trying to save lives from coast to coast. Tonight, Shelley Brown tells us how.
Step by step, George Marcello is walking across Canada. This is the 248th day of Marcello's 500-day walk. His message is simple: to raise awareness and educate the public about the critical shortage of organ and tissue donations in Canada.
She's carried the torch all the way through Regina so far, and she is going to pass it to you, and you are going to be the 136th person to receive the torch in so many cities.
Marcello's life changed forever in 1992 when he learned he had a life-threatening liver disease. He was put on a waiting list.
I was told at that point that I only had 2 days left to live, and my only hope was an organ transplant.
George was lucky. Too many Canadians needing a transplant have died waiting. People like Blair Schwarzenberger. The 36-year-old Saskatoon resident was on life support after suffering a massive heart attack in January, desperately needing a heart transplant.
You know, what's at stake here is lives, and future lives. So what we're trying to do is promote a very positive spirit. We're letting every Canadian from coast to coast know about the benefits and importance of becoming an organ donor.
Marcello took his message to the provincial government.
Welcome to Saskatchewan.
Health Minister John Nielsen accepted the torch, saying while Saskatchewan has the highest rate of organ donations in Canada in 1998, at 22 donors per million people, we can't afford to be complacent. Marcello's journey continues. He'll spend the next 2 weeks in Saskatchewan, expects to end his journey with the commitment from all Canadians to sign their organ donor cards by the time he ends his trek in January 2002 back in Toronto. Shelley Brown, Global News, Regina.
You're watching Global News with
Millions. The RCMP lives. George Marcello arrived in Regina today, halfway through a 500-day walk across Canada. CTV's Aaron Klein shows us why he's on this cross-country trek.
On behalf of Saskatchewan, we're happy to pass it on to you.
Okay, well, thank you very much.
George Marcello is passing on a flame of awareness. Marcello is walking across Canada raising awareness to the importance of organ donation.
Foremost is that people will think about becoming organ donors, you know, think about the importance, and also that they're going to discuss this with their family. That's very, very important also.
Marcello knows a little something about the importance of transplants. He received a life-saving liver transplant in 1992. In 1998, Saskatchewan had the highest rate of organ donation in Canada, with 22 donors per 1 million people. Provincial Health Minister John Nilsson believes residents can do better, and it starts with people like Marcello.
Each person you have educated and convinced to sign an organ donor card may potentially save the lives of 6 other people. If we look at it that way, we can see the tremendous impact that George Marcello has made in people's lives across our country.
Marcello will visit 491 cities and towns across Canada. He also hopes to take his odyssey to London and Rome. But that's later. For now, he just wants to get out of the cold.
Kind of looking forward to get through this winter. It's been pretty tough and cruel, you know, I think a little bit of insanity runs in my blood, so...
Though Marcello knows there's nothing crazy about raising public awareness to the value of organ donations. Erin Klein, CTV News, Regina.
The 6 organs that can be transplanted include the heart, kidneys, pancreas, lungs, liver, and intestines, in addition to 5 other types of human tissue. If you would like more information about any of this, you can call this number, 1-800-667-7551.
And we're heading up now to Pilot Butte where Tom...
And should we ask for you? Will you be there?
All right, our next story. Wisconsin man has been given the opportunity to have his sentence cut by a judge saying he could wear a sign reading, "I stole from the families of the dead." Daniel Pinnell was given the option from a judge pleading guilty to taking around $350 from memorial cards at the Eau Claire Funeral Home where he worked.
You know, this guy sounds like a lawyer to me, Timmy.
I don't know. It could be a lawyer, right? All right.
Full of tragedies, and this morning we're hearing about 2 men who lost their lives on the Trans-Canada, and out of that, you know, there is the possibility of life. Not to sound cold and callous this morning, but that's what we're going to talk about. It's a sensitive issue, but a very important issue. From someone dying, from someone losing their life, they can give life to other people, and that is called donating your organs and tissue. What we're talking about this morning is just that, and then we're talking about a very impressive man who is with me in the studio. You may have heard of him. You may have heard about him on our newscast today and certainly yesterday. George Marcello is with me in studio, and George, welcome to the show. Welcome to Saskatchewan.
Thank you, and good morning, Regina.
Now, a little bit of background about George. He's a 45-year-old who has survived a liver transplant. George, you've been walking across Canada. In fact, you walked across Ontario. You've done a lot of walking. And we're going to talk about your views on the state of organ donation and tissue donation in Canada, why you're doing this. I mean, you've got to have a reason, a lot of spirit for doing this. And certainly we want to hear from some people this morning on their opinion about it, especially if you out there, a friend, a family, a relative who has gone through the process of waiting for a transplant. And we'll talk about that and much more, and simply find out a little bit more about this man who's among the people we see coming through Regina, I think, and walking across Canada for many different causes. George Marcello, to me, seems to be a little bit different. Great dedication, great enthusiasm, and great energy. So I think it's important that we find out why he's doing this, a bit about George, your chance to talk to him one-on-one, simply congratulate him if you care, and to talk about the issues surrounding signing your donor card, either the one that comes with your license, one you can get, having that in your will, carrying one with you, and all of that. And And first of all, George, you have to ask the question, why in winter? Why do the walk in winter?
Actually, it's Premier Harris's fault. He changed his schedule on this. We were, I'm not saying that in a bad way, of course. We were scheduled to kick off the walk in March, and you know, we were planning to have the Premier there in March, and just something came up and he couldn't make it in March, so we put it off till June. And by that time, we already had the route set up, so if we would have started in March, I would have been in BC by now, you know, not going through the school bar. But, you know, I'm getting an education about your winter out here in the prairies.
All right, and as well, you're on a 500-day walk across Canada. You won't be walking directly across the country, but you're covering sections of it. We'll talk a little bit about that. And this is day 249, must be, because yesterday was 248. So this morning, a chance for you to meet and talk to George Marcello. Organ donation and tissue donation has become his passion. He is a liver transplant survivor himself. In 1992, you were told you were going to die. It took you, I think, 3 years to get a transplant. There in itself is a story. So this morning at 936-9898 in town, long distance toll free, 1-800-409-3980, out where it counts. So we're going to talk with George Marcello, who co-founded Step by Step, Organ Transplant Association, diagnosed with terminal liver disease in '92, received a liver transplant operation in 1995, and we want to hear from you this morning as well. And if you don't like the idea of organ transplants, organ donations, or you have some misconceptions about it, I'm sure George will set you straight, and we'll talk about the impact on families and why this has become a national issue, not just a provincial one. Greg Bonnet with you here on Newsline on 980 CKRM. Back with George Marcello right after this quick break. We're talking about George Marcello and his odyssey across Canada to boost awareness of organ transplants, organ donations, and tissue donations. And the question, a couple of questions for you this morning. Does Canada need a...
Falls Secondary School took part in a walkout today, upset over the lack of extracurricular activities. Student Council President Victoria Lamb says another walkout is commenced today on his walk across Canada. And as Catherine Murphy tells us, Marcello is trying to raise funds and raise awareness about the importance and benefits of organ donation.
45-year-old Marcello is walking across Canada to raise awareness for organ donation. He met with Mayor Vic Power, who made a small donation to his campaign on behalf of the city. Marcello himself was diagnosed 8 years ago with terminal liver disease. 3 years later, suffered liver failure and was given 2 days to live.
My only hope was a transplant, and also knew that Canada had the worst rate of organ donations in this country, and you know, my situation was pretty grim.
Marcello says he was fortunate. A liver was available for him the very next day. He's pleased with the recent announcement by Premier Harris about organ donation and says it's a step in the right direction, but there are still a few things that need to be ironed out.
We were extremely delighted when the Premier acknowledged what I did in the throne speech last year and created the Premier's Advisory Board on Organ and Tissue Donations.
Marcello hopes his walk down Algonquin Boulevard and his time spent here in Timmins will help raise much-needed funds for his campaign and raise awareness for organ donation. Catherine Murphy, MCTV News, Timmins.
If you're interested in helping Marcello out with a cash donation, he can be reached on his cell phone at area code 416-540-7872 or on his website at stepbystep.ca.